Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
Benjamin Franklin said, "If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail," which is true. Success or failure can often be attributed to the original plan, brief or strategy. So, plan like your business depends on it, and do it now. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. So, what does business planning look like? Chris Ashmore is discussing the ins and outs of preparation with business coach and author Emma McQueen. And Chris puts to Emma that right now must be the perfect time to focus on planning for the year ahead.
Oh, now is an amazing time when it's quiet and when most of Australia is having a well-earned break to do some planning and set yourself up for the year. I did wonder whether people were doing planning in October and November of last year, but I think people ran out of energy, to be honest with you. So I think people really just needed the break to refresh and reset. And now hopefully they've come back feeling good. And if they haven't started planning, they could definitely use the next couple of weeks to start planning the year out.
So when a business owner does sit down and has pen and paper in hand, what does a business plan look like? What do you suggest?
Oh, it's a good question. There are many forms of a business plan. I can tell you how I do it. And what I do to sit down and plan is I actually look at a full year calendar. So I actually have a physical calendar in front of me because that's how I roll. And I get my top 4 or 5 goals and I just put a headliner goal. And then I use that goal to inform the choices of the quarter and then of the month. So I roll that big goal. Let's say one of my goals is a brand new website. So that might be the headline goal where I go, okay, brand new website. And then I decide which quarter will I do that in? What resources is it going to need? What support will I need? Who will I outsource it to? What conversations do I need to have? And then I list all the steps from a quarterly perspective as to what I'll do, which then informs my choice as to when I do it. Do I do it quarter 1, 2, 3, or 4? And once I've got that sorted, you kind of work backwards from the goal to make sure you've got the resources and the support and the cash in place to get that project done.
So how long does it take for you to work out the plan? Because it can be quite detailed, can't it? Deciding exactly what you've got to do, when you've got to do it, who you've got to call. It can take, all day?
I reckon you can smash out your goals, and I would suggest only 4 or 5 goals for the entire year, because if you think about an overarching goal being a new website, how many pieces there are to that puzzle. Yeah, that's getting a copywriter. That might be getting an SEO expert. That might be finding a website person, like all the things. Not too many goals means we can get them done properly. I reckon you could probably smash out 5 goals and all the steps needed from a quarterly, monthly and weekly perspective in 6 hours. If you're focused, but you got to be focused on it, and it's almost a planning day. It's like taking yourself as the CEO out of your everyday environment, hiring a different space, working out actually how do I just think all these things through to make sure that I've got all the bits in place. If you've got a team, sometimes you might bring them in, but at that point I would bring them in after you've got your goals so that you aren't negotiating with your team around your goals. So you're setting the business goals and the business vision, and they're helping to implement those things.
Another aspect of planning and goal setting and all these kinds of things for a small business owner is cash flow and money and pricing. Inflation at the moment is an ongoing issue. Is this an opportunity at this time of year, Emma, to work out the pricing structure and even having a process of lifting prices to match inflation?
There's probably 3 things keeping business owners awake at night. 1 is inflation. 2 is increasing expenses. So operating costs are more expensive just generally. And then hiring staff. Hard to get staff anywhere, right? From a pricing perspective, I think different business models have different pricing structures. I am of the opinion that we need to raise our prices a couple of times a year. But the question for me is, will that actually keep up with inflation, given what the media is saying about how quickly inflation is happening? And from a pricing strategy perspective, people should already have a pricing strategy in place. Now, they may be able to change that pricing strategy, or they may decide that they need a different model for that pricing strategy.
Well, aside from prices, are there other challenges you see that business owners face?
Yeah, like I said, I think increasing operating expenses. I mean, if you're anywhere near a supply chain, you would know that supply chain has massive lag issues going on, and costs of goods are just going through the roof. So there's that as well. And hiring staff. All you have to do is take a wander around your local suburb to see that there's hiring signs everywhere in hospitality and retail. People just cannot get the staff. So if your business is reliant on staff, one, retain the current staff you have with all you've got. Make sure you've got good retention strategies in place. Make sure you value your employees, et cetera, so they don't leave. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is we're going to have to think outside the square in terms of hiring staff. It's not enough just to put an ad up and hope someone comes, because that's just not how it's working anymore. We have to be a bit more proactive than that. I have a client who has been looking for staff for the last 12 months, and she's got a very specific field. And instead of looking for staff, what we've actually done is gone out and hired subcontractors, and we've gone on some other platforms like a Fiverr or an Upwork to try and find people who can just do it project by project until we find the right person. Because the other trap is when you're hiring, if you hire the wrong person as a small business, it's going to cost you a lot of money. If you hire for technical ability, you are guaranteed to be firing for attitude. If you hire for attitude and can teach them the technical ability and keep them in the business, then you've got more of a chance of them being a solid employee.
Now, before we go, Emma, and we've talked about some of the challenges in front of us for the year ahead, but are you optimistic about 2023?
Look, I was optimistic about 2022, let's be honest. I'm always optimistic. And 2022 hasn't quite panned out as I thought it would. I thought people would come back to face-to-face events. I thought COVID would subside, and it hasn't quite happened that way. There is more movement, though, out there now. And I think in 2023, I think we'll see what I thought we were going to see in 2022, which is more people out and about, business growing again, and consumer sentiment being a bit more optimistic. Unfortunately, though, the media does do that fear-mongering thing where, you know, inflation and costs of living and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's going to be tempered with that. So I think people are optimistic, but I think it might be tempered with what they think is reality. For me personally, I'm super excited. I actually think that this is going to be a great year. I think that small businesses are excited to get out and about, and I think that this year is going to be so much better than the years that we have had previously. Wouldn't be hard to top, would it? But I'm optimistic for this year.
That was business coach Emma McQueen. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.